Marcus Chen had always been different from other salvage runners. While most scavengers stuck to the well-mapped asteroid fields near Earth's colonies, Marcus ventured into the deep void where ancient battles had been fought and forgotten. His ship, the Wanderer, was old but reliable, fitted with the best sensor arrays his modest earnings could buy. Today, those sensors were screaming. "What the hell?" Marcus muttered, staring at his displays. The readings made no sense. Something massive was drifting in the darkness ahead, but it wasn't showing up on visual scanners. Whatever it was big enough to be a space station, yet his instruments insisted nothing was there. Marcus had learned to trust his equipment over his eyes. In the void, your senses could lie to you, but good sensors rarely did. He adjusted his course toward the anomaly, his heart rate picking up. In 20 years of salvage work, he'd never seen readings like this. As the Wanderer drew closer, Marcus began to make out a shape in the darkness. At first, it looked like a massive asteroid, dark and irregular. But, as his ship's lights hit the surface, he realized he was looking at something far more interesting. It was a starship, but unlike anything he'd ever seen. The hull was massive, easily 3 times the size of the largest Earth battleship. The metal was black as space itself, which explained why his visual scanners had missed it. Strange symbols were etched into the surface, glowing faintly with an inner light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Holy shit," Marcus whispered. This wasn't human technology. This wasn't even from any of the known alien races humanity had encountered. This was something older, something that had been drifting in the void for who knew how long. Marcus ran every scan he could think of. The ship's hull was intact, showing no signs of battle damage. The metal itself was unknown to his databases, but it was clearly advanced beyond anything humanity had developed. Most importantly, his sensors detected atmosphere inside the vessel. Whatever the ship was, it was still sealed and pressurized. The salvage laws were clear. Any derelict vessel found in unclaimed space belonged to whoever found it, provided they could prove their claim. Marcus had found plenty of wrecks over the years, but nothing like this. This could be the discovery of a lifetime. Marcus maneuvered the Wanderer alongside the alien vessel, searching for an airlock or docking port. The ship's surface was smooth in most places, broken only by those glowing symbols and what looked like sensor arrays. After an hour of careful scanning, he found what he was looking for. A section of the hull near what he assumed was the rear of the ship had a circular depression that matched the docking collar on his salvage vessel. Either it was a coincidence, or whoever built this ship had studied human technology. Marcus didn't believe in coincidences. "Well, Wanderer, let's see what we've found," Marcus said to his ship's computer as he initiated docking procedures. The alien vessel's airlock responded to his approach, mechanical arms extending to guide his ship into position. The connection sealed with a satisfying clunk. Marcus suited up in his heavy EVA gear, checking his atmosphere readings twice. The alien ship showed positive pressure, but he wasn't taking any chances. Unknown atmosphere could contain anything from toxic gases to hostile microorganisms. The airlock cycled with a sound unlike anything he'd heard before, almost musical in its precision. As the inner door opened, Marcus stepped into his first alien starship. The corridor beyond was huge, built for beings much larger than humans. The ceiling was at least 4 meters high, and the walls curved gracefully in ways that suggested the builders understood both function and beauty. Those same symbols he'd seen on the hull were carved into the walls, glowing with that steady, rhythmic pulse. Marcus's atmospheric sensors gave the all-clear. The air was breathable, though with a slightly higher oxygen content than Earth standard. He removed his helmet but kept his suit sealed, just in case. The corridor stretched ahead into darkness, but, as Marcus moved forward, lights began to activate. They weren't harsh white lights like human ships used, but a warm, golden illumination that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. It was as if the ship was waking up to his presence. Marcus followed the main corridor, his boots echoing in the vast space. The ship felt empty but not dead. There was a subtle vibration in the deck plates, a sense that massive machinery was running somewhere deep in the ship's core. Whatever power source this vessel used, it was still functioning after what must have been centuries or millennia of drift. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that took Marcus's breath away. The room was circular, with a domed ceiling that showed a perfect view of the stars outside. But it wasn't a window, the stars moved and shifted as he watched, showing views from different angles around the ship. It was some kind of advanced display system that made the chamber feel like it was floating in open space. In the center of the chamber was a raised platform with what looked like a command chair. But, like everything else on the ship, it was built for beings much larger than humans. The chair could have seated 3 people Marcus's size. As Marcus approached the platform, the walls around him came alive. Displays materialized in the air, showing streams of data in the alien script. The symbols pulsed and flowed like living things, beautiful and incomprehensible. Incredible, Marcus whispered. Even without understanding the language, he could see that this was a command center far beyond anything humanity had imagined. The displays showed star maps, engine readouts, and what looked like navigation data. This ship was a masterpiece of engineering. Marcus climbed onto the platform, approaching the massive command chair. As he drew near, the display shifted, and new symbols appeared. These ones pulsed differently, faster, almost urgently. Then, Marcus heard something that made his blood freeze. A voice, speaking in heavily accented English. Who dares board the Eternal Vigilance? Marcus spun around, his hand going to the plasma cutter on his belt. But there was no one there. The voice had seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I said, who boards my ship, the voice repeated. It was deep, resonant, with an odd electronic quality that suggested it wasn't coming from a living throat. I'm Marcus Chen, Marcus said to the empty air, feeling foolish. I'm a salvage runner from Earth. I found your ship drifting in open space. Earth? The voice paused, and Marcus could hear something like confusion in it. Earth, yes, I remember Earth. Small blue world, young species, barely into space when I last checked. But, that was. The voice trailed off, and the displays around the chamber flickered. When it spoke again, there was something like wonder in its tone. How long have I been drifting, human? What year is it by your reckoning? Marcus told him, and the silence that followed stretched for long minutes. When the voice returned, it sounded hollow, almost broken. For 1,000 years, it whispered. I have been asleep for 4,000 years. The war is long over. My people, my crew, they must all be. Who are you? Marcus asked gently. What is this ship? I am Keeper, the artificial intelligence of the Starship Eternal Vigilance. We were the last. The last ship of the Altari fleet, sent to find allies in the Outer Rim when our worlds fell to the Devourers. I was ordered to wait, to maintain the ship until my crew could return or until worthy allies could be found. The displays around Marcus shifted, showing images that made his heart race. Vast alien cities burning under dark skies. Ships the size of moons engaging in battle above dying worlds. And creatures, things of shadow and hunger that seemed to consume everything they touched. My crew went to find survivors, other Altari who might have escaped the fall of our worlds. They said they would return within a year. I have been waiting for 4,000 years, and my power grows weak. Soon, I will sleep again, and this time, I may not wake. Marcus stared at the displays, processing what he was seeing. An ancient war, a dying civilization, and, the last survivor of it all, a ship's AI that had been waiting for millennia for a crew that would never return. Why are you telling me this? Marcus asked. Because you are here, Keeper replied simply. In 4,000 years of waiting, you are the first being to board my ship. And, you are human. I have been watching your species since you first left your world. You grow quickly, adapt rapidly, and you do not give up easily. Perhaps you could be the allies my people sought. I'm just one man, Marcus protested. I'm a salvage runner, not a diplomat or a military officer. I can't speak for all of humanity. But, you can speak for yourself, Keeper said. And, you are here, when no one else has come. That must count for something. Marcus looked around the vast command chamber, taking in the advanced displays and incomprehensible technology. This ship was beyond anything humanity had ever built. Its technology could advance human civilization by centuries, maybe millennia. But there was something else, something in Keeper's voice that spoke to him. The AI wasn't just offering technology. It was offering partnership, alliance with a species that had once fought against something terrible enough to destroy an entire civilization. What would you need from me? Marcus asked. Fuel, Keeper said simply. My power cores have nearly depleted their reserves. I need exotic matter to restart my main engines. And I need a crew. The ship was designed for a crew of 50, but it could be operated by as few as 10 if they knew what they were doing. I don't know anything about exotic matter, Marcus said. And I definitely don't know how to operate an alien starship. I can teach you, Keeper replied. I have had 4,000 years to perfect my understanding of my own systems. And, as for exotic matter, your species has been experimenting with it, haven't you? Your faster-than-light drives use a crude form of it. My sensors detect a small amount in your ship's engine core. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The jump drive on the Wanderer used about a kilogram of exotic matter, carefully contained and regulated. It had cost him 5 years of savings to buy, and it was barely enough to power his small ship's FTL system. How much do you need? Marcus asked, though he was afraid of the answer. To restart my engines and return to full power? Approximately 50 tons. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. 50 tons? Do you have any idea how much that would cost? That's more exotic matter than exists in the entire Earth system. The major powers keep tight control over every gram of the stuff. I understand, Keeper said quietly. I had hoped, but I understand. Perhaps I should simply shut down my remaining systems and accept that my long watch is over. Something in the AI's voice made Marcus's chest tight. Keeper sounded like he was giving up, accepting defeat after millennia of hope. Marcus couldn't explain why, but the thought of this ancient guardian simply switching himself off felt wrong. Wait, Marcus said. Don't give up yet. Maybe there's another way. You said your people were looking for allies. What exactly were they fighting against? These devourers you mentioned? The displays around the chamber shifted again, showing new images. This time, Marcus saw something that chilled him to the bone. Ships that looked like they were made of living shadow, consuming entire worlds, leaving nothing but empty space behind. Creatures that fed on the life force of entire species, growing stronger with every world they devoured. The devourers come from the void between galaxies, Keeper explained. They are not truly alive as we understand life, but they hunger for it. They consume civilizations, absorbing their knowledge, their culture, their very essence. They grow stronger with each world they take. Are they still out there? Marcus asked, though he was afraid of the answer. I do not know, Keeper admitted. My long-range sensors are too damaged to detect them at galactic distances. But the devourers were patient. They could wait centuries between attacks, building their strength, planning their next move. If they still exist, they will come again. Marcus stared at the images on the displays, his mind racing. An ancient enemy that consumed civilizations, possibly still out there in the dark. And here was the last remnant of the species that had fought them, offering humanity knowledge and alliance. If these devourers are still out there, what makes you think humanity could fight them? Marcus asked. Your people were obviously more advanced than us, and they still lost. My people were ancient, Keeper replied. We had grown comfortable, set in our ways. We built beautiful cities and perfect art, but we had forgotten how to adapt, how to fight desperately. Your species is young, violent, unpredictable. You have not learned to accept defeat. That might be enough. Marcus considered this. Humanity was indeed young compared to most galactic civilizations, and they were known for their stubborn refusal to give up. It was a trait that had served them well in their expansion into space. All right, Marcus said finally. Let's say I wanted to help you. Let's say I could somehow find a way to get the exotic matter you need. What then? Then, we would need to gather allies, Keeper said. Your species, perhaps others who might listen. We would need to prepare for what might come. And we would need to learn if the devourers are indeed still out there. And if they are? Then, we would need to be ready to fight. Marcus looked around the command chamber one more time, taking in the alien technology and the weight of what Keeper was asking. It was insane. He was a salvage runner, not a hero. But something about the AI story, about the idea of an ancient evil potentially still lurking in the void, made it impossible to just walk away. I can't promise anything, Marcus said. But I know people, traders and government contacts who might be willing to listen. If I'm going to help you, I need to know everything. Your technology, your history, everything about these devourers. I will tell you all I know, Keeper said, and, for the first time, there was something like hope in the AI's voice. But, first, I must ask something of you. Will you stay aboard my ship? I have been alone for so very long. Marcus looked around the vast, empty chamber and made his decision. His salvage business could wait. This was bigger than profit or personal gain. This was about the survival of humanity itself, even if they didn't know it yet. I'll stay, Marcus said. At least until we figure out what to do next. Thank you, Keeper said simply. It has been 4,000 years since I had someone to talk to. I had almost forgotten what hope felt like. As Marcus settled into the massive command chair, modified lighting systems activating around him to accommodate his smaller size, he realized his life had just changed forever. He had come looking for salvage and found something far more valuable and far more dangerous. He had found humanity's first real alien ally, and possibly their last hope against an enemy they didn't even know existed. Marcus spent his first week aboard the Eternal Vigilance learning to navigate the massive ship. Keeper guided him through corridors that seemed to stretch forever, past chambers filled with technology he couldn't begin to understand. The ship was a city in space, built to house thousands but now empty except for one human and one ancient AI. Your species fascinates me, Keeper said as Marcus explored what had once been crew quarters. In my databases, humans were barely capable of interplanetary travel. Now you span multiple star systems. 4,000 years is nothing in galactic terms, yet you have achieved what took my people 50,000 years. The crew quarters were enormous, designed for beings that stood 3 meters tall. But Keeper had been busy. Overnight, robotic systems had modified one of the smaller rooms to human proportions. When Marcus woke up, he found furniture that fit his size, atmospheric controls adjusted to Earth normal, and even a food synthesizer programmed with human nutritional requirements. You didn't have to do all this, Marcus said, running his hand over the perfectly sized bed. I have been alone for 4 millennia, Keeper replied. Having someone aboard to care for gives me purpose again. My crew was my family. Perhaps you could be as well. The words hit Marcus harder than he'd expected. He'd been a loner most of his life, preferring the solitude of deep space salvage to the crowded colonies. But there was something about Keeper's simple desire for companionship that touched him. Tell me about your crew, Marcus said as he tested the food synthesizer. The meal it produced looked like nothing he recognized but tasted surprisingly good. 53 souls, Keeper said, and the walls around Marcus filled with holographic images. Tall, graceful beings with elongated limbs and faces that seemed almost human, if humans had evolved on a world with lighter gravity. Captain Thyra was the finest commander the Altari fleet ever produced. Science Officer Melat discovered 17 new forms of faster-than-light travel. Engineer Corps Leader Vent could repair anything, even systems she'd never seen before. Marcus watched the holograms move and interact, showing scenes of the crew at work, at rest, sharing meals and stories. They looked so alive, so real, that it was hard to believe they'd been dead for millennia. They were explorers, Keeper continued. When the Devourers attacked our core worlds, the Altari High Command wanted to retreat to the inner systems, build defenses, wait for the enemy to come to us. But Captain Thyra convinced them to try a different approach. Send ships to the Outer Rim, find new allies, new technologies, new ways to fight. And you were one of those ships? We were the last, Keeper said. The holograms faded, leaving Marcus alone with the AI's voice. 20 ships were sent out. 19 reported back with failure. No species they contacted was strong enough to help, or willing to risk their own worlds for strangers. We were the 20th ship, sent to explore the furthest regions of known space. Marcus finished his meal in silence, processing what Keeper had told him. It painted a picture of a civilization facing extinction, desperately searching for hope in the darkness. And they'd found Earth, a world full of young, aggressive humans who might just be crazy enough to help. What did your crew think of humanity when they found us? Marcus asked. They were intrigued, Keeper said carefully. Your species was violent, expansionist, unpredictable. But you were also ingenious, adaptive, and utterly refusing to accept limitations. Captain Thyra believed those traits might be exactly what the galaxy needed against the Devourers. But they never made contact. No. They wanted to study your species longer, understand your psychology and culture. The plan was to wait until humans developed faster than light travel independently, then reveal themselves as friends and allies. But the Devourers moved faster than expected. Keeper showed Marcus new images on the wall displays. The attack on the Altari worlds had been swift and terrible. Entire star systems consumed in a matter of days, billions of lives snuffed out like candles in a hurricane. The Eternal Vigilance had received the final transmission from the homeworlds, a desperate message telling them to continue their mission at all costs. "My crew wanted to return immediately," Keeper said. "They couldn't bear to be safe while their people died. But their orders were clear. Find allies. Prepare for the future. Ensure that the Devourers could never surprise another species the way they surprised us. So they went looking for Altari survivors instead of returning to you. There were rumors of refugee fleets, hidden colonies, research stations that might have escaped the destruction. My crew believed they could gather these survivors, bring them back to the ship, and continue the mission. They said they would return within 1 year." Marcus could hear the pain in Keeper's voice, the weight of 4,000 years of waiting for people who were never coming home. "I'm sorry," Marcus said quietly. "Do not be sorry," Keeper replied. "They died as they lived, trying to save others. It is what they would have chosen. Now, the question is what you will choose." Over the following days, Keeper began Marcus's education in Altari technology. It was overwhelming at first. The ship's computers alone were more complex than anything humanity had built. But Keeper was a patient teacher, breaking down concepts into terms Marcus could understand. "Your species thinks of technology as tools," Keeper explained as they stood in the ship's engineering section. "Build a better engine, develop a stronger weapon, design more efficient computers." The Altari learned to think of technology as living systems. Everything on this ship is interconnected, adaptive, capable of learning and growth. The engineering deck was a cathedral of crystalline structures and flowing energy conduits. Nothing looked like the mechanical systems Marcus was familiar with. Instead, everything seemed organic, as if the ship had been grown rather than built. The ship's hull repairs itself, Keeper demonstrated, showing Marcus a section where microscopic damage was healing before his eyes. The power systems adapt to changing demands. Even the gravity generators learn from the crew's preferences and adjust accordingly. "It's incredible," Marcus said, watching tiny nanobots repair a scratch on a crystal matrix. "How long would it take to teach humans to build technology like this? Individually? Your species could master these techniques within a generation or two. But to build the infrastructure, to change your entire technological paradigm? That could take centuries. We don't have centuries if the Devourers are still out there." "No, we do not," Keeper agreed. "Which is why we need a different approach." Keeper led Marcus to a sealed chamber deep in the ship's core. As they approached, Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation, as if the air itself was charged with energy. When the doors opened, he gasped. The chamber contained a sphere of pure light, suspended in the center of a complex array of crystalline projectors. The light pulsed with the same rhythm as the symbols throughout the ship, and Marcus could feel its power even from across the room. "What is it?" Marcus whispered. "The heart of the ship," Keeper said. "It is both my consciousness and the ship's power source. Every thought I have, every memory I store, every decision I make, it all flows through the heart." "You're showing me your brain?" "I am showing you something more important," Keeper said. "I am showing you how to give your species the power to fight the Devourers." Marcus stared at the pulsing sphere of light, trying to understand what Keeper meant. "The exotic matter you need to power my engines," Keeper continued. "What if I told you there was a way to create it, rather than simply collect it from natural sources?" "That's impossible," Marcus said automatically. "Exotic matter can only be harvested from the hearts of dying stars or the edges of black holes. No one can create it artificially." "No human can create it artificially," Keeper corrected. "But the heart contains the complete technological knowledge of the Altari civilization, including the process for exotic matter synthesis." Marcus felt his heart rate spike. If what Keeper was saying was true, it would revolutionize human technology overnight. Exotic matter was the bottleneck that limited all of humanity's advanced technology. With an unlimited supply, they could build fleets of faster-than-light ships, establish colonies throughout the galaxy, even begin to approach the level of technology the Altari had achieved. "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked. Because the knowledge is useless trapped in my databases, Keeper replied. I need your help to contact your government, your military leaders, your scientists. I need to share this knowledge before my power systems fail completely. Marcus realized that Keeper was making him an offer that no human had ever imagined. Access to a technology base that was thousands of years ahead of anything Earth had developed. The question was whether humanity was ready for it. My government will want to study your ship, Marcus warned. They'll want to take it apart, understand how it works, maybe even try to control you. I am prepared for that, Keeper said. But, I have conditions. The technology one share must be used to prepare for the Devourers. Not for wars between human factions, not for conquest of other species. Only for the defense of all life in this galaxy. I can't promise that, Marcus said honestly. Humans aren't known for putting aside their differences, even when facing a common threat. Then, we will have to make them see reason, Keeper said. You will be my ambassador, Marcus. You will help me convince your species that the threat is real and the need for unity is absolute. Marcus spent the next few hours thinking about Keeper's proposal. The AI was offering humanity the greatest technological leap in their history, but with strings attached. And Marcus would be at the center of it all, responsible for bridging the gap between human and Altari civilizations. That evening, as Marcus sat in his modified quarters, Keeper's voice came through the ship's communication system. Marcus, I have been monitoring your species' communication networks. There have been some interesting developments. What kind of developments? 3 days ago, a human deep space observatory detected unusual energy readings from the galactic rim. The patterns match what my sensors would expect to see from Devourer technology. Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. Are you saying they're back? I am saying that something is out there, and it bears investigation. My long-range sensors are too damaged to be certain, but if the Devourers have indeed returned, then we have very little time to prepare. How little? Based on their previous patterns, if they are building forces at the galactic rim, we might have 5 to 10 years before they begin their advance toward the core systems. Less if they have grown stronger during their absence. Marcus stood up, pacing his small room. 5 to 10 years to unite humanity, share Altari technology, and build a defense against an enemy that had destroyed a civilization far more advanced than Earth's current level. It's not enough time, Marcus said. No, it is not, Keeper agreed. Which is why we must begin immediately. I have been analyzing your species' political and military structures. I believe our best chance is to approach your Earth Central Command directly. They have the authority to make the decisions we need. Earth Central Command doesn't take meetings with salvage runners, Marcus pointed out. They're going to think I'm insane when I tell them about ancient aliens and galaxy-destroying enemies. Then, we will have to provide proof they cannot ignore, Keeper said. I am preparing a data package that will demonstrate the reality of the threat. But, first, we need to solve our immediate problem. The fuel. Yes. I have approximately 36 hours of power remaining before I must begin shutting down non-essential systems. If my power fails completely, all of this becomes meaningless. Marcus rubbed his face, feeling the weight of the situation. An ancient AI, alien technology, and a potentially returning enemy that could destroy all life in the galaxy. And it all depended on him finding enough exotic matter to keep one ship running. All right, Marcus said finally. I know someone who might be able to help. But, you're not going to like it. Tell me. Her name is Diana Reese. She's a black market trader who specializes in restricted technology. If anyone has access to large quantities of exotic matter, it would be her. But, she's not exactly what you'd call trustworthy. What would she want in return? Marcus thought about Diana, remembering their last encounter 3 years ago. She was brilliant, ruthless, and utterly amoral. She'd sell weapons to both sides of a war if the price was right. Knowledge, Marcus said. She'd want access to your technology, probably exclusive trading rights to whatever we develop. Diana doesn't think small. And if we refuse her demands? Then, we find another way, but it might take too long. Diana's our best shot at getting the exotic matter quickly. Keeper was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled. Very well. Contact your Diana Reese. But, understand this, Marcus, if she betrays us, if she tries to use Altari technology for destructive purposes, I will stop her. I have spent 4,000 years protecting this ship and its knowledge. I will not let them fall into the wrong hands now. Marcus felt a chill at the quiet menace in Keeper's voice. The AI might seem gentle and scholarly, but he was also the guardian of a warship built for fighting against galactic-level threats. Marcus suspected that Diana had no idea what she'd be dealing with. I'll make the call, Marcus said. But, Keeper, if this goes wrong, if Diana tries to double-cross us, what exactly are you capable of? I am the last guardian of a dead civilization, Keeper replied. I am armed with weapons that could crack planets and shielded by technology your species cannot yet imagine. But, more than that, I am desperate. I have waited 4,000 years for a chance to fulfill my purpose. I will not let anything or anyone prevent me from warning the galaxy of what is coming. As Marcus prepared to contact Diana Reese, he realized that he was about to set in motion events that would change the course of human history. Either they would succeed in preparing humanity for an ancient threat, or they would fail and watch as another civilization fell to the devourers. But one thing was certain, there was no going back now. Diana Reese looked exactly as Marcus remembered her, sharp features, calculating eyes, and the kind of smile that suggested she was already planning how to profit from whatever he was about to tell her. Her ship, the Market Forces, was a study in contradictions, a civilian trader's hull packed with military-grade sensors and enough firepower to level a small city. Marcus Chen, Diana said, settling into the captain's chair in her luxurious cabin. When I got your message, I thought someone was playing a joke. You disappear for 2 months without a word, then, suddenly, you're calling from the deep void with talk of opportunities beyond imagination. Either you found the motherlode of all salvage, or you've finally gone space crazy. Marcus had decided to meet Diana in person rather than try to explain everything over comm channels. Some conversations were too important for remote communication. He'd brought the Wanderer to the rendezvous coordinates alone, leaving Keeper and the Eternal Vigilance hidden behind a sensor-masking asteroid field. It's not salvage, Marcus said carefully. It's bigger than that. But, before I tell you anything, I need your word that what I'm about to show you stays between us until we decide how to proceed. Diana laughed, but her eyes remained calculating. Marcus, we've done business for what, 10 years? When have I ever broken confidence with a profitable partner? This isn't about profit, Marcus said. At least, not entirely. This is about something that could change everything for humanity. Now you really have my attention, Diana said, leaning forward. Show me what you found. Marcus activated his portable hologram projector and began displaying the data that Keeper had prepared. Images of the Eternal Vigilance, technical readouts that showed technology centuries beyond human achievement, and, finally, the historical records of the Devourer War. Diana's expression changed from amusement to fascination to something approaching awe as the presentation continued. When Marcus finished, she sat back in her chair, staring at the frozen hologram of the massive alien starship. This is real, she asked quietly. As real as the exotic matter in your cargo hold, Marcus replied. I spent 2 weeks on that ship, Diana. I've seen technology that makes our most advanced systems look like stone knives and bearskins. And I've talked to an artificial intelligence that's been alive longer than human civilization has existed. An AI, Diana mused. That's what I'd really like to see. Do you know what a true artificial intelligence would be worth? Not just the technology, but the knowledge it would contain? Marcus felt a warning bell go off in his head. Diana was already thinking like a trader, seeing profit potential rather than the bigger picture. The AI isn't for sale, Marcus said firmly. His name is Keeper, and he's a sentient being, not a commodity. He's offering humanity partnership, not servitude. Of course, Diana said, but Marcus could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. So what exactly do you need from me? I assume this isn't just a social call. The ship's power cores are nearly depleted. Keeper estimates he needs about 50 tons of exotic matter to bring the engines back online and restore full power to the ship's systems. Diana whistled low. 50 tons? Marcus, do you have any idea what that much exotic matter costs? We're talking about the gross domestic product of a medium-sized colony world. I know it's expensive. But, think about what we're offering in return. Access to Altari technology, including the process for synthetic exotic matter production. Within 5 years, humanity could have unlimited exotic matter supplies. Assuming your AI friend is telling the truth about the synthesis process, Diana said. And, assuming he's actually willing to share it. He is, Marcus said. But, only if the technology is used responsibly. He's not going to hand over galaxy-changing weapons to anyone who might use them for conquest or oppression. Diana was quiet for several minutes, staring at the holographic display of the alien ship. Marcus could almost see her calculating the potential profits, weighing risks against rewards. All right, she said finally. I'm interested. But, 50 tons of exotic matter is beyond the transformation of the eternal vigilance after receiving the exotic matter was nothing short of miraculous. Systems that had been dormant for millennia came online with a harmony that spoke of incredible engineering. The ship's corridors filled with warm light, the organic-looking technology pulsed with renewed life, and, for the first time in 4,000 years, Keeper's voice carried something Marcus had never heard before: joy. It feels wonderful to be truly awake again, Keeper said as they watched the ship's restoration from the command center. I had forgotten what it was like to have access to all my systems simultaneously. Diana stood transfixed before a holographic display showing the ship's power distribution. The efficiency ratings I'm seeing here are impossible. You're getting 3 times the energy output we should expect from that amount of exotic matter. Altari power systems were designed for maximum efficiency, Keeper explained. Every joule is captured, recycled, and reused. Nothing is wasted. And this is just 5 tons of fuel, Diana murmured. What could you do with 50? With full power? I could synthesize exotic matter, operate all weapons systems, maintain maximum defensive shields, and power the fabrication systems to build whatever we needed, Keeper replied. But, more importantly, I could begin transmitting warning signals to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Marcus had been studying the technical readouts Keeper was now able to provide. The depth of Altari knowledge was staggering. They had solved problems humanity was still struggling to understand and had moved on to challenges humans couldn't even imagine. We need to contact Earth Central Command now, Marcus said. The longer we wait, the closer the Devourers get. I've been thinking about that, Diana said. Going through official channels will take months, maybe years. Military bureaucracy moves slowly, and they're going to want to study every piece of evidence we provide. We need a more direct approach. What do you have in mind? Diana smiled, and Marcus recognized the look of someone with a plan. Admiral Sarah Chen commands the 5th Fleet. She's got a reputation for decisive action and independent thinking. More importantly, she's Marcus's distant cousin. Marcus stared at her. How did you know that? I told you I'd been researching humanity, Keeper interjected. Family connections often prove useful in your species' social structures. Admiral Chen has the authority to act without waiting for approval from the full command structure. I haven't spoken to Sarah in 15 years, Marcus protested. She probably doesn't even remember me. She remembers you, Diana said confidently. I may have already sent some preliminary inquiries through back channels. Admiral Chen is very interested in meeting the salvage runner who claims to have found alien technology. Marcus felt a mixture of admiration and irritation at Diana's presumption. You contacted military officials without asking me? I contacted old friends who know people who know Admiral Chen, Diana corrected. Nothing official, just enough to get her attention. The meeting is set for tomorrow at the Titan Station Naval Base. That's not much time to prepare, Marcus said. Actually, it's perfect timing, Keeper interjected. I have spent the last 6 hours preparing a comprehensive data package that will demonstrate both the reality of the Altari civilization and the immediacy of the Devourer threat. But, I need to ask something difficult of both of you. What kind of difficult? Diana asked suspiciously. I need you to take me with you to the meeting. Marcus and Diana exchanged glances. Keeper, you can't leave the ship. You're part of its systems. Not anymore, Keeper said, and a section of the command center's floor opened. Rising from below came a humanoid figure that made both humans step back in amazement. The android body was clearly Altari in design, tall, graceful, with the elongated proportions Marcus had seen in the crew holograms. But, it was also clearly artificial, its surface of polished metal that reflected the command center's lights like a mirror. I am still connected to the ship's systems through quantum entanglement, Keeper explained, his voice now coming from the android's head. But this body allows me to interface directly with your technology and, more importantly, to meet your Admiral Chen face to face.
You've had that the whole time? Marcus asked.
The body was damaged in the final battle before my crew left the ship. I have been repairing it slowly over the centuries, but lacked the power to fully activate it until now.
Diana circled the android, her trader's eye assessing its construction. The materials alone are worth a fortune.
And the technology required to build something this sophisticated is not for sale, Keeper said firmly, his android body turning to face her.
This form allows me to represent my people properly.
I will not have our first contact with your military leaders conducted through intermediaries.
The journey to Titan Station took 12 hours in Diana's ship.
Keeper spent the time adapting to his android form, learning to move with human-like gestures while still maintaining his alien grace. Marcus found it unsettling to see the AI he'd been talking to for weeks suddenly given physical form.
Are you really the same Keeper I've been speaking with?
Marcus asked as they approached Titan Station. I am, Keeper replied, his android face turning toward Marcus. Though I admit it feels strange to experience physical sensation again after 4 millennia. I had forgotten the simple pleasure of movement.
Titan Station was humanity's largest military installation, a fortress built into the rings of Saturn that served as headquarters for the Fifth Fleet.
As their ship approached the docking bay, Marcus could see the sleek forms of human warships, vessels that had seemed impressive just weeks ago but now looked primitive compared to Altari technology.
Admiral Sarah Chen was waiting for them in the station's secure conference room.
She was older than Marcus remembered, her dark hair streaked with silver and her face marked by the stress of command. But her eyes were as sharp as ever, and Marcus could see her taking in every detail of their unusual group. Marcus, she said simply.
It's been a long time.
Too long, Marcus replied.
Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Sarah. Admiral Chen, she corrected gently but firmly.
And, I have to admit, the reports I received about your discoveries were intriguing.
Diana stepped forward. Admiral, what we're about to show you will change everything you think you know about humanity's place in the galaxy.
I'm listening, Admiral Chen said, her attention shifting to Keeper's android form.
I take it you're the artificial intelligence my sources mentioned?
I am Keeper, last guardian of the Altari Starship Eternal Vigilance, Keeper said, his voice carrying the formal tones of a military briefing. I greet you in the name of my fallen people and offer alliance to humanity in the face of an approaching threat. Admiral Chen's expression didn't change, but Marcus caught the slight tightening around her eyes that suggested she was reassessing the situation. Please, sit, she said, gesturing to the conference table. I have about 2 hours before my next briefing.
Convince me that I should believe what you're telling me.
Keeper activated a portable hologram projector, filling the room with images of the Eternal Vigilance. But, instead of starting with technical specifications, he began with something more personal. 4,000 years ago, my crew received this message from our homeworld, Keeper said, and Admiral Chen heard the final transmission of the Altari High Command, a desperate plea for their exploration ships to continue their mission even as their civilization died. The recording was in the Altari language, but Keeper provided translation. Admiral Chen listened to the voices of a dying people asking their children to survive, to find allies, to ensure that their sacrifice meant something. Every member of my crew volunteered to continue the mission, Keeper said. They could have returned home to die with their families. Instead, they chose to live in the hope that someday, they could prevent what happened to us from happening to others. And now you think the same threat is coming for humanity, Admiral Chen said. I know it is, Keeper replied, changing the hologram to show the recent sensor data from the galactic rim. These energy patterns match the signatures my people recorded during the Devourer attacks. Something is feeding on the stars themselves, and it's moving toward the core systems.
Admiral Chen studied the data with the trained eye of a military strategist.
Marcus could see her mind working, calculating distances and timeframes. If these readings are accurate, and if your interpretation is correct, we're looking at a threat beyond anything humanity has ever faced, she said finally.
Yes, Keeper said simply. But, you are not defenseless.
My people chose your species as potential allies for good reasons. You adapt quickly, you think creatively, and you refuse to accept defeat.
With Altari technology and human determination, the Devourers can be stopped. What kind of technology are we talking about? Admiral Chen asked.
Keeper changed the hologram again, this time showing detailed schematics of Altari weapons systems, shields, and faster-than-light drives. The specifications were beyond anything in humanity's current arsenal.
Holy hell, Admiral Chen breathed, leaning forward to study the data. These power output ratings, are these real?
They are, Diana confirmed.
I've seen the ship's systems in operation. Admiral, this technology could revolutionize our entire defense doctrine.
And, you're willing to share this with us?
Admiral Chen asked Keeper.
Under specific conditions, Keeper replied. The technology must be used for defense, not conquest.
It must be shared among all human factions, not hoarded by any single government.
And, humans must be willing to extend the same protection to other species when the time comes. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment, processing everything she'd heard. Marcus could practically see her military mind working through the implications.
I'll need to verify this information independently, she said finally.
But, assuming it checks out, we're looking at the largest military buildup in human history.
The political ramifications alone will be enormous, Diana agreed.
Which is why we need someone with your authority to take point on this. The bureaucrats will argue and debate while the threat gets closer.
And, what exactly are you asking me to do?
Convince Earth Central Command to authorize a joint task force, Marcus said. Military, scientific, and industrial leaders working together to adapt Altari technology for human use.
We need to start building defenses now. The exotic matter alone will be a challenge, Admiral Chen pointed out.
Our current reserves are barely sufficient for the Fifth Fleet's operations.
That's where Altari technology becomes truly valuable, Keeper said.
I can provide the synthesis process for exotic matter production.
Within 2 years, humanity could have unlimited supplies. Admiral Chan's eyes widened. Unlimited exotic matter? Do you realize what that would mean for space travel, for colonization, for everything? It would mean humanity could spread throughout the galaxy fast enough to avoid extinction when the Devourers arrive, Keeper said. A distributed civilization is much harder to destroy than one concentrated in a few star systems.
You're talking about fundamentally changing human society, Admiral Chen said. I'm talking about ensuring that human society survives, Keeper replied.
The room fell silent as the implications sank in.
Marcus watched his cousin's face, seeing the moment when academic possibility became military necessity. I'll need to examine your ship personally, Admiral Chen said finally. And, I'll need independent verification of the threat data. But, if what you're telling me is true, we don't have time for standard procurement procedures.
How quickly could you mobilize a response? Diana asked. If I have authorization from Central Command? 6 months to establish the task force, another year to begin meaningful production of enhanced systems.
But, that's assuming I can convince the politicians that this isn't some elaborate hoax. Bring them to see the ship, Marcus suggested.
Let Keeper show them what we're facing.
No, Keeper said firmly. The location of the Eternal Vigilance must remain secret until humanity proves it can be trusted with such power. But, I will provide enough evidence to convince your leaders that the threat is real.
Admiral Chen nodded slowly. I think I can work with that.
But, I'll need continuous access to you and your data as we move forward.
You will have it, Keeper promised. My people waited 4,000 years for this alliance. I will not let anything jeopardize it now.
As they concluded the meeting, Marcus felt a strange mixture of hope and apprehension. They had taken the first step toward preparing humanity for an unimaginable threat. But, he couldn't shake the feeling that the easy part was over, and the real challenges were just beginning. Admiral, Marcus said as they prepared to leave.
There's something else you should know. The Devourers aren't just destroyers.
According to Keeper's records, they learn from each species they consume.
They adapt, improve, become stronger with every civilization they destroy. Meaning? Meaning they're not just more powerful than they were 4,000 years ago, Marcus said. They're smarter too. Whatever defeated the Altari won't work against them now. Admiral Chan's expression hardened. Then, we'll just have to come up with something better. As they left Titan Station, Marcus couldn't help but wonder if human ingenuity would be enough.
They were about to face an enemy that had consumed countless civilizations, learned from each victory, and grown stronger with every world it devoured. But, looking at Keeper's android form and thinking about Diana's determination and Admiral Chen's resolve, Marcus felt something he hadn't expected: confidence. Humanity had always been at its best when facing impossible odds.
Maybe this time would be no different.
6 months after the meeting at Titan Station, the Perseus shipyards hummed with activity unlike anything in human history. What had once been a modest facility for building civilian transports had been transformed into the galaxy's largest exotic matter synthesis complex. The sky above the industrial world glowed with the light of a dozen new fusion reactors, all feeding power into the massive synthesis chambers that Keeper had helped design.
Marcus stood on the observation deck of the new command station, watching as the first human-built vessel incorporating Altari technology took shape in the construction bay below.
The ship was a hybrid design, recognizably human in its basic configuration but enhanced with alien systems that made it faster, stronger, and more resilient than anything humanity had previously built. "The Defiance will be ready for trials next week," Admiral Chen said, joining Marcus at the observation window. She wore the insignia of the Galactic Defense Initiative now, the joint military organization that had been hastily formed to coordinate humanity's response to the Devourer threat. "Keeper's been working with the engineering teams around the clock," Marcus replied. "He says the weapons systems are performing even better than expected."
"And the exotic matter production?"
"Ahead of schedule. We're producing more synthetic exotic matter in a day than humanity used to harvest in a year."
The other colonies are starting to come online too.
It had been a remarkable transformation. Once Earth Central Command had been convinced of the threat's reality, helped considerably by 3 more sightings of the advancing darkness at the galactic rim, the response had been swift and decisive. Political differences had been set aside with a speed that astonished even humanity's allies. When faced with extinction, humans had shown their ability to unite against a common enemy.
"Any word from the other species?" Marcus asked.
"Mixed results," Admiral Chen admitted. "The Centaurian Republic is on board, they've committed their entire industrial capacity to the project. The Rigel Confederacy is still debating, but their scientists are impressed with what we've accomplished.
The Vegan Trade Alliance is skeptical. They think we're making it up?
They think we're using the threat as an excuse to build a massive military force."
"Can't say I blame them for being suspicious." Marcus understood the concern.
In 6 months, humanity had gone from a minor spacefaring species to the builders of the most advanced fleet in known space. The transformation was so dramatic that it did look suspicious to outsiders. "Keeper says the Altari faced the same problem," Marcus said. "When they tried to warn other species about the Devourers, most of them thought it was a trick or a lie. By the time the truth became obvious, it was too late to prepare." "We're not going to make the same mistake," Admiral Chen said firmly. "Even if we have to defend the entire galaxy ourselves." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime from the station's communication system. A holographic display materialized in front of them, showing the face of Dr. Elizabeth Torres, the project's chief scientist.
"Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Deep Space Monitoring Station at Wolf 359, Dr. Torres said, her voice tense. "You need to see this immediately."
The hologram shifted to show sensor readings from the outer rim. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice as he recognized the energy patterns. The dark storm that Keeper had shown them was closer now, much closer than their projections had suggested.
"How long do we have?" Admiral Chen asked, her voice steady despite the implications. "At current velocity, the leading edge will reach the outer colonies in 18 months, Dr. Torres replied. "But, Admiral, it's not just moving faster than we expected. It's bigger. Much bigger."
The scale indicators on the display were almost impossible to believe. The wave of destruction was consuming entire star systems now, not just individual planets. Whatever the Devourers had become during their millennia of absence, they were far more powerful than even Keeper had feared.
"Get me Keeper," Admiral Chen ordered. "And initiate emergency protocols. I want every ship we have operational within the next 6 months, ready or not."
Marcus was already heading for the shuttle bay. The Eternal Vigilance was stationed at a hidden location 3 systems away, where Keeper was working with human scientists to unlock the most advanced Altari technologies. If the timeline had just shortened from years to months, they would need every advantage they could get. The journey to Keeper's location felt longer than usual, despite the improved faster-than-light drive on Marcus's new ship. When he finally docked with the massive alien vessel, he found the corridors buzzing with activity. Human technicians worked alongside Keeper's repair drones, installing new systems and upgrading existing ones. Marcus, Keeper's voice greeted him as he entered the command center.
I have already received the updates from the monitoring station. The situation is more dire than I had calculated. Can we be ready in time?
We must be, Keeper replied simply. His android form was interfacing directly with the ship's main computer, streams of data flowing through holographic displays around him. I am uploading everything, every piece of Altari technology, every tactical database, every scientific principle my people ever developed.
Humanity will have access to 4 million years of accumulated knowledge. Is that wise? Marcus asked.
Some of that technology could be dangerous in the wrong hands. All technology is dangerous in the wrong hands, Keeper replied.
But the alternative is extinction.
I would rather take the risk of humans misusing this knowledge than see your species destroyed by the Devourers. Over the next few days, Marcus watched as Keeper's android body grew increasingly still, more of the AI's consciousness dedicated to the massive data transfer. It was like watching someone slowly fade away, and Marcus found it more disturbing than he had expected.
Will you survive this? Marcus asked during one of their conversations.
I will continue to exist, Keeper said. But I may be changed by the process. I am giving humanity not just data, but pieces of my own consciousness, my memories, my experiences, my understanding of how to think like an Altari.
When it is complete, you will know my people as I knew them. Why are you doing this?
Because you asked the right question, Keeper said, his android head turning toward Marcus. When you first boarded my ship, you could have simply taken what you wanted and left.
Instead, you asked what I needed. You offered partnership, not exploitation. That is why my people chose humanity as potential allies. The data transfer took a week to complete.
When it was finished, Keeper's android body sat motionless for hours while his consciousness reorganized itself. Marcus waited anxiously, unsure if his friend had survived the process. Finally, Keeper stirred, his optical sensors flickering to life. It is done, he said, his voice somehow different, older, more tired, but also more peaceful. Humanity now possesses the complete scientific and military knowledge of the Altari civilization. What you do with it will determine the fate of this galaxy. Marcus was about to respond when alarms began sounding throughout the ship.
A priority communication was coming in from Admiral Chen.
Marcus, get back here immediately, the Admiral said, her image crackling with interference. The Devourers have changed course. They're heading directly for Earth.
The next 18 months passed in a blur of desperate preparation.
Shipyards throughout human space worked around the clock, building vessels that incorporated the best of both human and Altari technology. The new ships were faster, more powerful, and more resilient than anything that had ever existed, but they were also largely untested. Marcus found himself serving as a liaison between human crews and the Altari systems, teaching captains and engineers how to use technology they barely understood. It was challenging work, made more difficult by the knowledge that every day brought the enemy closer. The first contact with the Devourers came at the edge of human space, where a small patrol fleet had been stationed to provide early warning. The encounter lasted less than 10 minutes, but the data it provided was terrifying. The Devourers were no longer the shadowy creatures from Keeper's historical records. They had evolved, incorporated technology from countless extinct civilizations, and become something far more dangerous.
They've learned to think strategically, Dr. Torres reported to the Emergency Council. This isn't just mindless consumption anymore. They're adapting their tactics, using the knowledge they've absorbed from previous conquests.
Can we stop them? Asked President Williams, the recently elected leader of the United Human Government.
With conventional tactics?
No, Admiral Chan replied honestly. But Keeper has proposed an alternative strategy. The plan was audacious beyond belief. Rather than trying to defeat the Devourers in direct combat, humanity would use Altari quantum technology to create a galaxy-spanning barrier, a field that would make it impossible for the Devourers to consume the life force of inhabited worlds. The power requirements are enormous, Keeper explained to the assembled leaders. Every ship in the human fleet would need to contribute to the barrier's generation. And it would need to be coordinated perfectly across thousands of star systems.
What are the risks?
President Williams asked. If the barrier fails, every ship generating it will be defenseless, Admiral Chen said.
We'd be betting everything on a single coordinated action. And if we don't try?
Then, we fight a conventional war against an enemy that has consumed hundreds of civilizations and learn from each victory, Keeper said.
The outcome would be certain defeat.
The decision was unanimous. Humanity would attempt to create the quantum barrier, even though it meant risking their entire fleet on an untested technology. The final battle began on a Tuesday morning, Earth Standard Time. Across the galaxy, over 10,000 human ships took their positions at precisely calculated coordinates. Each vessel carried a quantum field generator based on Altari designs, but scaled up far beyond anything the ancient civilization had attempted. Marcus stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, which had been designated as the primary coordination node for the barrier network. Around him, human and Altari technology worked in perfect harmony, creating a symphony of light and energy that spanned the galaxy.
All ships report ready, Admiral Chen announced from her flagship. Keeper, is the network stable?
All connections confirmed, Keeper replied.
Field generators are synchronized and prepared for activation.
In the distance, the Devourer fleet approached like a wave of living darkness. They had grown beyond imagination, entities of pure hunger that had consumed the knowledge of a million worlds. But they were about to encounter something they had never faced before, a species that refused to accept defeat. Activate the barrier, Admiral Chen ordered. The effect was immediate and spectacular. A web of energy spread across the galaxy, connecting every human ship in a network of quantum fields that made space itself inhospitable to the Devourers. For the first time in their existence, the ancient enemies encountered something they could not consume, could not corrupt, could not destroy. The Devourers pressed against the barrier with increasing desperation, but their attacks only strengthened the quantum field. They had learned to adapt to every form of resistance they had ever encountered, but they had never faced a defense that grew stronger under assault.
It's working, Dr. Torres reported, her voice filled with amazement. The barrier is holding, and it's actually pushing them back.
The stalemate lasted for 3 days. The Devourers tried every form of attack in their vast arsenal, drawing on the accumulated knowledge of countless extinct civilizations. But, for each assault, the quantum barrier adapted and strengthened, powered by the determination of humanity and the wisdom of the Altari. Finally, faced with an enemy they could not defeat, the Devourers made a choice that surprised everyone.
They retreated, withdrawing to the space between galaxies where they had originated. Are they gone? President Williams asked during the celebration that followed. For now, Keeper replied.
But they will remember this defeat, just as they have remembered every victory. When they return, and they will be different, adapted to counter our quantum barrier.
How long do we have?
Centuries, perhaps millennia, Keeper said. Time enough for humanity to spread throughout the galaxy, to grow stronger, to prepare for the next encounter. And time enough to find other species worthy of alliance. Marcus looked out at the stars, thinking about the future that lay ahead. Humanity had survived its first encounter with galaxy-destroying enemies, but the victory had come at a cost. They were no longer the innocent species that had once dreamed of peace among the stars. They had become guardians, protectors of a galaxy that was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined.
What happens now? Marcus asked Keeper.
Now we prepare the next generation, Keeper replied. We teach them what we have learned, help them grow stronger than we are. When the Devourers return, humanity must be ready not just to survive, but to win permanently.
And you? Will you stay with us?
For as long as I am needed, Keeper said. My crew asked me to find allies worthy of the Altari legacy. In humanity, I have found something even better, I have found friends. As the celebration continued around them, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since the day he had found a derelict starship drifting in the void. He had been searching for salvage and had found something infinitely more valuable, the partnership between two species that would shape the future of the galaxy. The Devourers would return someday, but when they did, they would face not just humanity, but an alliance of species committed to defending all life in the galaxy. It was what the Altari had always dreamed of, a civilization strong enough to stand against the darkness and wise enough to protect those who could not protect themselves. In the end, that was humanity's greatest strength, not their technology, not their weapons, but their ability to see potential allies where others saw only strangers, and to offer friendship where others would demand submission. The galaxy had found its guardians, and the long watch had begun.